On today's World Insight, the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi on an official visit to China, the first for an Iranian leader in decades. What does the visit mean for relations between China and Iran and for the international community?
And here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. At the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping, Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi led a large delegation in his first state visit to China this week. The two leaders held talks in Beijing about bilateral and multilateral issues. President Xi from China pointed out that the two countries enjoy traditional friendship, and these ties have withstood the test of time. He said China is keen on friendly cooperation with Iran, pursue the China-Iran comprehensive strategic partnership, and play a positive role in building world peace. For his part, President Raisi said Iran's relations with China is based on mutual respect, and they are sincere strategic partners worthy of mutual trust. They jointly witnessed the signing of a number of bilateral agreements on agriculture, trade, tourism, and health. On Thursday, the two countries came up with a wide-ranging joint statement on politics, security and defense, the economy, education, and culture. So what can we learn from the latest visit by the Iranian president to China? What is going to be the nature of this partnership for the years ahead? Let's invite our panelists. Joining us in Tehran, Sadeh Zibakalam, an Iranian political scientist, and also Rong Ying in Beijing, Vice President of the China Institute of International Studies. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. This visit, once in 20 years, certainly shows its significance. But to you, Mr. Zibakalam, among all the things that I introduced already about this bilateral relations as a result of the leaders' meeting, what to you is the most important?
I think it is very important for Iran, given the animosity between Iran and the West, particularly the United States and Europe. Iran is seeking support, international support, for her struggle against the West, and it is very significant its relation with China, because Russia has also been very important for Iran. But we know that for more than a year now, Russia has been stuck in Ukraine, and China can support Iran internationally, politically, and economically. So it is terribly important for Iran to have a very good and very strong relationship with China.
Now, to Mr. Rong, we might want to go through some of the issues one by one. One is about the nature of the strategic partnership. Of course, China is a strategic partner of many countries and economies. But in the case of Iran, which emphasis would you put on among all the issues that we mentioned?
Certainly, I think the relationship between China and Iran is what we call the comprehensive strategic partnership that was reached in 2016 when President Xi visited Iran. And what makes this relationship different or unique, if we talked about the compared to another relationship, is I think exactly what I think our Iranian panelists that have been said, that China and Iran are long civilizations with traditional friendship. And at this moment, both China and Iran are facing new issues, new challenges, but also new opportunities. I think at this moment, the top leadership visits like that definitely helps strengthen and improve the political trust and the communications. And more importantly, I think they work together to to direct the future directions of how to strengthen, how to implement the comprehensive strategic partnership. These, I think, this is, and this relationship is going to be not only important, significant for China and Iran, but also the impact will be felt in the region and beyond.
Right. Also joining us on the phone, Abbas Aslani, a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. He's based in Iran, as far as I understand. Sir, welcome to the program as well. Tell me more about Iran is being accepted as an SCO, certainly on the memorandum of obligations to become a permanent member of the SCO. That is the official ways to put it. So how much of a potential would that provide Iran for cooperation, both in the region and beyond, as a result of it?
Well, thank you for having me. In fact, Iran's cooperation with Eastern countries and powers and its inclusion in Asian mechanisms and organizations sets the ground for further, let's say, convergence between those non-Western countries which are facing, let's say, pressure from the United States and from some Western countries. Those efforts in order to, let's say, impose sanctions on Iran as well as Russia and some other countries is somehow pushing these two countries together in order to find common grounds for cooperation. As you said, Iran has become a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And this is, in fact, the first, let's say, bloc that the country is becoming a regional bloc, that the country is becoming a member after the revolution in the country, and this indicates the significance of the cooperation. So that can pave the way for more political and security cooperation between the member states and Iran, as well as Iran's access to Central Asia also is a, let's say, merit for the country and the other members as well. So given that Iran and other member states and the recent visit by Iranian President to China is important because Iran as the provider of energy is important, as well as their likely and the potential for cooperation on corridor, as well as, let's say, China's economy and technology it has can also benefit Iran from the other side. So this is quite significant because the pressure from the West is not just coming against Iran, but you're seeing that against China, Russia, and some other countries in this region.
We got your point, Mr. Aslani. We have others also to join into this conversation. Mr. Rong, Mr. Aslani mentioned a word which is quite interesting, bloc. Now, I know China expressed it in a different way, but is it going to be just expressions differently, or in nature, we are having two countries thinking differently in terms of what exactly is SCO and the kind of multilateral cooperation between China, Iran, and some of the other countries? Mr. Rong.
That's right. I think SCO is a kind of new form of regional grouping that advocates and cooperation in the area of security, in the area of economic development, and it's equally important for people-to-people and the cultural exchanges. And I think the SCO, with Iran from being the full member of that organization, definitely it would be help SCO to play a more important role in regional and global issues. And I think as we have seen that the SCO as a new form or new type of regional organization that advocates cooperation, dialogue, and partnership, provides a kind of alternative and a new option in a way how countries in the region and beyond, which share the common or convergence on how to manage their relationship and how to address issues in the region.
So is it a bloc or not?
I'm not sure it is a bloc, but for me at least, it's not a bloc. It's more a kind of a partnership where I think with which members can work together and through cooperation and address the issues and challenges in the cooperative way.
On the other issues like economic cooperation, Mr. Ziba Kalam, of course, energy, infrastructure, and the list goes on, taking place between China and Iran, very encouraging. Though under the current geopolitical situations, challenges also remain as a result. So how do you see this mixed picture?
You mentioned in your question about geopolitics of the region. As we know, the region is a very troublesome part of the world. There are enormous problems between Iran and Saudi Arabia, between Iran and United Arab Emirates, between Iran and Israel. I think that there is an underlying factor. China cooperating with Saudi Arabia, with the Gulf state, and with Iran, China can play a very important role in trying to sort of bringing these states together, because as you know, China has a strong economic bond with Saudi Arabia, with the Gulf state, with Israel. So it is possible that beyond economic cooperation, China will play a very important role in pushing these states that are full of conflict with each other towards some sort of understanding and some sort of peace and security in the region.
Mr. Rong, is that going to be China's role?
Definitely, I think China wishes to play a constructive role in helping the region, the regional countries, to find a way to address their problems. But more importantly, as we have seen the past few years, China has working very hard by providing initiatives and proposals how to manage, how to address these issues. For example, on the question of security, on the question of development, on the question of a dialogue in the region, and more importantly, on the issues of how to formulate, how to establish a new security framework or new security architecture that would be able to promote a kind of cooperation or dialogue that this region needs. And of course, this region, as we know, is full of sort of challenges, and China wishes to work together with all the stakeholders in the region and beyond to ensure this region will enjoy peace and stability and development.
That certainly is a very delicate balance as a result of that task. Mr. Aslani on the phone, tell me more about your thoughts in this. How is China's flexibility and also appropriate role of bringing parties together be able to benefit the economic initiatives seems to be taking place between China and Iran as well? We know there is great infrastructure, there is mutual investment, especially investment from China in Iran. How does that work?
Well, comparing the nature of cooperation with powers like China or, let's say, Western powers, there is a significant distinction in this regard. You know, when Western countries want to work with a country, in addition to, let's say, let's assume security or economic cooperation, they also want to press their own values to the other country. It means that the cooperation with those countries is conditional to even to some political changes domestically. But speaking of China, the situation is a bit different. China tries to somehow differentiate the values and the, let's say, the political system that exists in the country, and they try to focus on common grounds of, let's say, economy or even security and even, let's say, political cooperation, rather than trying to undermine, let's say, the values or traditions or even the sovereignty of other countries. That's why, let's say, the cooperation between Iran and China has been having less tensions or, let's say, But the third, other factors impacting those bilateral relations. That's why the leaders of both countries are saying that they will continue the relations under any condition. We are also seeing, as it was mentioned earlier by the other experts, that China also has relations and cooperation with other countries in the region. And if, let's say, this cooperation in parallel takes place constructively with all the countries in the region, that can contribute to the process of peace and stability in the region.
Yeah.
We are seeing, let's say, military presence and intervention by Western powers in this region by a different perspective, like the Chinese perspective, that to focus on common grounds and cooperation, there can be a shift and change in this process and trend in direction of more peace and stability. And I think this development can benefit China and those countries as well as the region as a whole.
Mr. Rong, when it comes to economic development and investment into Iran from China, there is always the issue of international sanctions. As we know, some of the Western countries are exercising sanctions against Iran. So how delicate a balance business partners of Iran from different parts of the world will have to walk as a result of that? Mr. Rong.
I believe that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly. I think China and Iran and all those countries that have been suffered by the Western sanctions are firmly opposed to that. And that's what exactly we have seen during the visit, the joint statement and the speeches and the remarks that have been made during the visit by President Raisi. So far, I think China and Iran, for the sake of managing the negative impacts of these sanctions, I think they have been working very hard trying to find a way of that. Of course, for example, if we talk about trade, it can be settled in the sort of national currencies of themselves and others. But the most important thing is, I think, these sanctions are illegal. These sanctions have brought untold sort of sufferings to the people. And more importantly, I think these sanctions, as the president of Iran has said, instead of sort of being pressurizing the Irans and other countries, I think in the end we have found that they are forcing Iran and China to find a way to develop itself. This is something I think certainly is very much, I think, opposite to the intentions of the United States and Western powers.
Mr. Ziba Kalam, very briefly before we go to a break.
Yes. I wanted to pinpoint to another point vis-a-vis the relationship between the new relationship between Iran and China, and that is there are a lot of criticism against this cooperation, 25 years agreement between Iran and China. China has been very much quiet and silent over the content of this cooperation. I think they must try to explain that actually the content of this.
Okay, another question is the Iranian nuclear issue. Of course, we have seen the ups and downs of that over the years. Now, where are we with ever-changing geopolitical situation? And certainly global security situation. Mr. Rong.
Yeah, I think the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of the Action, is an agreement reached, and it has been endorsed by the UN Security Council. So it should be, and it have to be followed. Unfortunately, because of the Trump administration, and it withdrew, and then it's also very unfortunate in a way that the Biden administration went against its words by not sort of change the policy of returning to the pact. And China, again, during the visit, and also I think during the meetings with the two foreign ministers and the two vice foreign ministers, on pledging that China would participating in a constructive way the resumption of the talks, and also China, of course, support the political sort of settlement of the issues. In the meantime, I think China also, support and understand that Iran has the right to peaceful use of nuclear power and nuclear technology. And of course, the JCPOA and all the agreement has to be followed, has to be implemented in a complete and balanced way. So it's
there are competing crises going on in the world in terms of security issues. We see a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, for example, and certainly attention has been diverted to very different places. So now, Mr. Aslani, briefly, if you can, what do you make of the attention span on JCPOA, on the Iranian nuclear issue? What does that for Iran? What does that mean for Iran?
Well, it seems that the Western parties, they say that they want to revive the nuclear deal, but they have not been ready to do so because there were protests in Iran, and they thought that clinching or reviving the deal would undermine those protests. That they are abusing that issue in order to, instigate unrest in the country. On the other side, as I said, that we are seeing, several, security developments in the world. And it seems that we are seeing an evolution maybe in the world order, and maybe new things might happen, new powers are emerging. That's why the West seems not to be able to tolerate those emergencies, emerging powers. They try to put pressure, on Iran from one perspective. On a different perspective, they try to pressure Russia. And they also try, through media propaganda or on economy, they want to push against China. So that seems to be part of a combination of, efforts in order to push against those countries who are not allied to the West. When it comes to the nuclear program, they say that they want to, make an agreement with Iran because they have some proliferation concerns. But in action, what is happening is something vice versa. And they want to keep the sanctions in place while, limiting Iranian nuclear program, because what they are afraid of is the progress in other countries, because they see those relations only based on rivalry rather than, areas for cooperation.
Also, may I have the answer from another guest from Iran, please, as well? Mr. Ziba Kalam.
Sanction is a very sensitive and problematic issue between the cooperation, future cooperation of China and Iran, because United States is watching like a hawk on the cooperation on economic assistance, particularly any military cooperation between Iran and China. So it is very important for China not to violate the international sanctions against Iran, because we know that there is a significant amount of Chinese export to the United States, and China will not put that export into danger because of mere economic relationship with Iran.
Interesting, the analysis from different sides about what might be the options for the others. Let me also ask you, Mr. Rong, about the potential. We have seen the world ever more fragmented, but the dust has not settled, meaning we're likely to be in this transition period for quite some time to come. So now, with China and Iran further committing to the comprehensive strategic partnership, the top leaders meeting, and in front of the camera, friendship, as well as comprehensive issues being discussed. What is China having in mind in terms of China-Iran relations in the overall picture China is working with the rest of the world for its potential?
Well, first of all, I think the relationship China and Iran is based on it's a bilateral nature. It's not meant to target at the third party. I think this is very much clear from the Chinese perspective. And secondly, as we have discussed, I think Iran is a major country, major power in the region, and it has great potential for development, not only for energy and resources, but also politically and beyond. And it is also, I think, the cooperation between China and Iran provides a very good example of cooperation between developing countries in pursuing, in fulfilling their mission for development. And China and Iran has a long history, great civilization. So the two civilizational countries working together, I think the meaning, the impact will certainly go beyond bilateral in this sense. And last but not least, I think China and Iran all oppose unilateralism, all oppose hegemony, all oppose bullying. And they are also working very much treasured about their sovereignty, about the territorial integrity, and the pride of being an independent nation. So that, I think this bilateral relationship is its impact, it goes much beyond bilateral. It goes beyond, I think, it definitely will be felt beyond in the region and beyond.
Let me go to the other two guests with each 15 seconds if we can, because we're really running out of time on this live show. Mr. Aslani, potential of this bilateral relations vis-a-vis the world's evolving.
Well, Iran and China in the, let's say, current context can work on, let's say, energy and corridor, as well as they have set out a roadmap of 25 years for cooperation. And the impact of the third parties, maybe the West, also needs to be taken care of, not just economic sanctions, but also the media narrative from the West is to undermine and weaken these relations. So the cultural relations between the two countries also need to be taken into account, because these relations need social
capital. We're running out of time,
well,
sir.
Which means
we're running out of
support.
time. Let's go to Mr. Ziba Kalam, 15 seconds if you can, sir.
I am very hopeful as far as economy is concerned, but there are huge political problems vis-a-vis Washington, vis-a-vis other regional powers, and we have to wait and see how China and Iran can develop this mutual cooperation.
Sadeh Ziba Kalam, Abbas Aslani, and Rong Ying, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for being with us. Bye for now.